Hello, TFI wishes you a very happy Holi. This colorful festival is a time to set aside differences, forgive and forget past mistakes, and renew relationships. Speaking of relationships, the world is a constant battleground between good and evil. Your perception about who wins depends on the winner because he or she is the one writing the battle story. But no matter who wins, there is one thing in common. The winner is always portrayed as good, no matter how evil he or she was. This is what modern day advertising is all about. The narrative creates an aura of goodwill for the targeted population. This is where Marlboro Cigarettes were uniquely placed. Namaste and welcome to TFIPost. I'm your host Akanksha. Let's begin. Marlboro, currently the major cigarette brand in the United States, is not a new entrant in the market. The cigarette brand owned and manufactured by Phillip Morris in America and Phillip Morris International outside the USA has more than 175 years old history. However, contrary to popular opinion, it did not originate in the USA but in the capital city of their former master, Britain. In 1846, renowned tobacconist Phillip Morris decided to sell tobacco and rolled cigarettes through a shop on Bond Street, London. 27 years later, Philip died of cancer, but his business did not. It was taken over by his widow Margaret and brother Leopold. They opened a factory on Great Marlborough Street in the same city. Later, various forms of Marlboro went on to dominate the brand. The first indication of the existence of a brand named Marlboros date back to 1885. Philip Morris and Company had decided to jump on the ships of initial years of feminism. The product was being advertised as ladies' favorite cigarette, but it was still a long way to go for the company. Due to various workplaces requiring more muscular strength, women did not have much earning capability. In places where they were allowed, systematic discrimination played a key role in keeping them out of the fold. As a result, women customers of the brand or any cigarette brand were not available in large numbers. In 1902, the company opened its New York subsidiary. However, initially, it did not have much information about the demography of consumers. That is why it took 6 years for the mark Marlboro to be registered. Company spent another 15 years deliberating on strategies to launch Marlboro in the country. Its job was made easier by the mass number of women joining the workforce in the wake of men going to military duty during World War I. The empowerment was so vast that women were now engaged in farming, a field traditionally believed to be men's forte. In the United States, the National Women's Trade Union League represented and provided job security to women. Even after the World War, women refused to leave the workforce and by extension financial independence. With an eye on putting a dent in the increasing spending capacity of women, Marlboro brand was finally launched in the US market in 1924. Taking the advantage of its London originating status, Philip Morris and Company advertised it as America's luxury cigarette, which was only available at expensive hotels and resorts. Later, the company explicitly started to sell it as a women's cigarette in America as well. Its campaign line kept propagating the women as a weak notion. To pull more common women towards it, the slogan used was "Mild as May." The message conveyed was simple: your body is not as strong as men, so we are caring for you with a special mild version of cigarette. In many ways, the subliminal message was patronizing and possible. That is why, in spite of skyrocketing increase in women's workforce participation, the sales figures did not hit expected numbers. Even relatively affluent white women whose participation rate had increased by 50% between 1819 to 1940 refused to buy it. The perception of Marlboro being a luxury item also could not fetch numbers. The situation was so bad that just before the start of World War II, the product was withdrawn from the market. Though it was later relaunched and after the war, the brand did regain some momentum. In spite of news headlines now dominated by anti-tobacco scientific reports, Marlboro registered steady growth by the end of 1960. On an annual basis, its sales growth remained steady in the range of 1 to 10%. However, in the first month of January 1964, something astounding and unexpected happened. Surgeon General of the United States gave official recognition to prevailing scientific consensus that cigarette cause cancer. This was an existential crisis for these companies, including Marlboro. While companies like Camel, Lucky Strike, and Chesterfield caved in, Marlboro's response was on more unexpected lines than the announcement itself. It started a new marketing campaign which later went on to be followed by various other companies. Phillip Morris started a new type of advertisement called lifestyle advertising. Though these advertisements, he focused more on situations surrounding the consumption of product rather than product itself. It did not explicitly tell them how good their product was by citing different sources. Instead, that Morris attached people's emotions with the product. Marlboro's advertisements were now targeting men as a consumer, the men who had lost touch with their masculine side, the men who did not know what masculinity is, and finally, the gullible men who could be fooled. Marlboro cigarettes were showcased as being smoked by manly men, strong in body, mind, and soul. The meek men, designed to cater to the spoken needs of the women, were pitched to be replaced by sea captains, weightlifters, war correspondents, construction workers, among others. Finally, Leo Burnett, the Chicago advertiser, settled on using cowboy as Marlboro Man. The advertising turned out to be a game changer. Earlier, men used to refuse to have Marlboro due to its women-centric market. Marlboro cigarettes were considered safer due to them being filtered. The idea of being on the safe side never goes with the concept of masculinity. That is why Morris initially decided to target only those men who were concerned about cigarettes causing lung cancer. Additionally, Marlboro was also producing milder, more aromatic, sweeter, and less harsh cigarettes by adding ammonia to the tobacco. The softness in product and hardness in advertising did the magic for Philip Morris by telling the public that Marlboro is consumed by heroic men of society as well. Morris eliminated the fear of demasculinization in common men. The sales skyrocketed, and the company, which held only 1% of the global cigarette market at the beginning of 1964, went on to become fourth largest cigarette brand by the end of year. For next year, it continued its extraordinary compound annual growth rate. In 1972, Marlboro occupied 12.7% of the US market, and with this achievement along with its foreign markets, it went on to become the best-selling tobacco brand in the world, a position it has been reluctant to leave. Even when cigarette advertisements were permanently banned from television in the 1970s, it kept getting virtually free advertising due to the cult of Cowboy Man. It is not that Marlboro relied on secondary sources of its advertising after the television ban. After 1972, it followed the trajectory of energy drinks and went on to partner with extreme sports to advertise itself. The status of numero uno tobacco company in the world provided it with the leeway to sponsor Formula One team BRM. In the next 2 years, it sponsored the Frank Williams racing cars team, whose cars were registered as ISO Marlboro. In 1974, Marlboro sided with McLaren, and the partnership went on to become the longest sponsorship deal between a team and its title sponsor in F1 history. The deal lasted for 23 seasons. After the deal with McLaren ended, Marlboro started sponsoring the Ferrari. The deal continued in different forms by the end of 2021. On the back of these advertisements, it has been expanded its footprints all around the world. After its introduction to 1.4 billion people in India, the company's market value has only increased. In 2021, the global market value was $159.2 billion. At the same time, it has been subject to various controversies as well, with the company focused on its core strength, and in spite of so many apparent flaws in the segment it operates, it is only increasing day by day.